Miyazaki's approach to this movie isn't him forgetting the bad things of the past and only remembering the good old days. He remembers the bad. This film was released as a double feature with Takahata's Grave of the Fireflies, and is set a little over a decade later. In many ways, 1950s Japan actually resembled the world of Fireflies more than it does the one we see in Totoro. You had a Japan and a Japanese people still recovering from a devastating war. The world Miyazaki presents in Totoro is a reimagining of this old Japan, from the viewpoint of children. Much how Mei reimagines the troll from Three Billy Goats Gruff and applies the word to the unnamed yokai Totoro, a mispronunciation of the foreign word troll, trollu. This reimagined world is an idyllic rural utopia, full of trees rather than the concrete towers of Tokyo and its suburbs. After the war, Miyazaki lived in the countryside, outside Tokyo, just as the Kusakabe family does in the film. The father, Tatsuo, is a university professor in Tokyo, teaching archaeology. And he's moved into a new house where he raises his daughters Satsuki and Mei, while the mother, Yasuko, is staying in a sanatorium with tuberculosis. Miyazaki's own mother also battled spinal tuberculosis. Mei is the younger child, as was Miyazaki at the time. Like him, she has an early interest in drawing. Well, I'm kind of reaching here. She draws, a lot of kids do. And she's not as good as Miyazaki is. And while Satsuki is the older child like his older brother was at this time, she is based more on the child Hayao was than Mei is. A kid who had to grow up earlier than they should have. Mei is the less mature child he perhaps should have been. In my own rural youth, I treasured this movie. I mean, I destroyed it by watching it too much, but in a treasurely sort of way. My mother battled cancer in my childhood and was left sick and fatigued for years, leaving my family plenty of time to watch Ghibli films. While I was growing up, the internet existed, but it wasn't as common. Elementary school didn't get computers until my final year, and my dad had to teach me how to type on a typewriter. Mobile phones were bulky and called car phones. A laptop was a luxury my dad only had because of his job, and I wasn't allowed to touch the thing. The neighbor kids and I played outside all day, every day. I didn't become a regular user of the internet until 2005, through a combination of looking up Studio Ghibli and Revenge of the Sith. Before that, I did all the things Mei and Satsuki do in the movie, picking vegetables on farms, walking in the woods, watching Golly Wally Pogs, as the streamlined dub calls them. I initially figured the movie was set in the present day, although I recognized it was in a culture foreign to me. I just assumed technology like television didn't appear as it didn't factor into the story. Little did I know, Miyazaki described this setting as being specifically before television sets were commonplace. Only upon rediscovering the movie in my teens, after my grandmother bought me the DVD, now selling for $250, woo capitalism, did I realize it was all set in the 1950s. I do have a mobile phone now, not as bulky as a 90s car phone, and I even have what some might generously call a functional laptop. The way I live now was unimaginable back in the 1990s. It's alien to the person I was, just as the person I was is alien to who I am now. Some of the elements of the world were predicted, but we're on the other side of a singularity. No, not the singularity, a singularity. Imagine those rascally kids today who have grown up playing on iPads as toddlers won't be relating to the world of Totoro as I do. And I honestly don't relate to it in the same way that someone actually alive in Japan in the 1950s would. The world they knew in the 50s is not really in this movie. In its place, Miyazaki recreates a more ideal world, a more ideal adolescence for himself. Not just a more ideal world in general, as I said earlier, but a world that is better specifically for him, for the person he was at the time. Tatsuo, like many men in Miyazaki's films, physically resembles his father Katsuji Miyazaki. Tatsuo Kusakabe is a father who is closer to the family, sensitive, imaginative, and inspiring. Perhaps the spirits are not even real. Perhaps they just represent the mystery and imagination of children taking in a new environment, and they're a tool for adults to feel what these kids are feeling. Their sense of wonder. Tatsuo doesn't crush their source of comfort. He doesn't tell them that the spirits aren't real, whether that would be true or false. The loneliness and insecurity of the children are met with nurturing from him, and also from the Totoros, Cat Bus, and their kind neighbor Oba-chan, translated to nanny or granny. The spirits of this house and the land around it which capture the imagination of Mei and Satsuki are yokai. A vastly oversimplified rule that isn't going to hold to scrutiny is that kami are yokai that are worshipped, and yokai are kami that are not worshipped. That explained virtually nothing, but I boldly said it anyway. Miyazaki has been vague on the Totoro's identity, but has at least once referred to them as obake. Obake, or bakemono, are things which change. Shapeshifters, transitional things. They are sometimes called ghosts in English, but obake are really more living things. A kitsune, or tanuki, changing their form. The cat bus is an obake known as a bakeneko, and spirits inhabiting trees and plants, like kodama, are another type of obake. I believe that Totoro may be a kodama of the great camphor tree next to the Kusakabe house, in which the Totoros live. Kodama would later have their appearance reimagined by the later film Princess Mononoke, actually shifting their perception in Japan from being lights, animals, or humans to being little white bipeds with rattling heads. Whatever Totoro is exactly, it's a type of yokai. Yokai, unlike kame, generally have less to deal with humans. Some help humans who encounter them, some are mischievous, and some are malevolent. Humans are generally safe from interference or attack until they wander into the realm of yokai, as Chihiro's irresponsibly excessive parents do in Spirited Away. A yokai is a spirit that exists on a number of boundaries, in a liminal space between natural and supernatural, civilization and wilderness, and here, between past and future, utopia and modernity. Like nostalgia, they are a very complex concept, both good and bad. Yokai are a very Japanese creation, something old. They're alien, mythological, and other, like the fair folk of Europe, but distinctly Japanese. The heart of this land, this old Japan. And they've, in some ways, been washed away, with Western translators calling them ghosts, goblins, demons, devils. And fictional representation in manga and on television is becoming more well-known and more common than their mythological ancestors. The movie isn't quite set in a real place. It's a fictional location outside of Tokyo called Matsugo, which was once a real village absorbed by Takurazawa in 1950. This fictional Matsugo is inspired by the area around Takurazawa, where Miyazaki moved with his wife in the 1960s, which was much more rural back then. The space doesn't matter, it's more of a when than a where. Vaguely in the countryside, in the time before it was bulldozed and paved over for skyscrapers as Tokyo expanded and modernized. Matsugo is less developed in this film's 1958 than it was in the real world at the time. There's fewer buildings, more farms, more trees, and to solidify how much this is the world of the past, there are yokai present in the community, even if the adults no longer see them. The yokai are, in a sense, a manifestation of that intangible old home for which Miyazaki feels nostalgia. A home which is not a house, but a time, a world, a Japan. Even for members of the audience that don't remember or long for this old Japan, the yokai and mythology still provide something. The audience watching this movie has certain advantages over the characters in it, and over us all during our own traumatic episodes in life. The yokai and the fantastic elements they introduce work to soften the blow of the darker elements, the pain and trauma. A family ready to crack under the pressure. A mother who may soon die and who is unable to care for or even regularly see her daughters. A father who is trying to hold down a job, a bus and train ride away in Tokyo, having to rely upon his elder daughter and a kind neighbor to care for his younger daughter when he is miles away. An older woman unable to comfort a girl she cares about because they both know how very real the chances of the girl's mother dying are, and then unable to locate the other child in her care as dusk approaches and overtakes the countryside. This is indisputably a fantasy film for children, who just see the peril as building action, but there is just a touch of terror and horror for adults, plucking the strings of real adult fears. Fantasy is complex, both good and bad, like yokai and nostalgia.